You ever meet someone who's smiling while their whole life is on fire? And you think, what's wrong with them? Are they in denial? Are they just pretending? But maybe they know something you don't. Here's the thing. Life isn't going to wait until you feel ready, until things calm down, or until the universe finally decides to cut you a break. It's going to throw things at you. Hard things. Unfair things. The kind of things that make you want to crawl into bed and disappear. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Happiness doesn't magically show up when those things are over. I've been in situations where fear was breathing down my neck, where the outcome was unknown, and where people around me crumbled under the pressure. And do you know who made it through stronger? Not the ones who waited for circumstances to get better, the ones who decided in the middle of the chaos that they were going to find their own light anyway. So I'm going to tell you something that might sting. If you're waiting for life to get easier before you start feeling happy, you're going to be waiting forever. The question is, are you willing to push yourself to be happy even when it feels impossible? Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And if you stick with me, you might just realize that happiness isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you fight for. Most people treat happiness like it's a paycheck, something you earn after you've worked hard enough, suffered long enough, waited patiently enough. They tell themselves, when I get the job, when I meet the right person, when I make more money, when I lose the weight, then I'll be happy. They create this invisible scoreboard, and they keep pushing happiness further down the field every time life doesn't go exactly as planned. The problem is the finish line never actually comes. Because even when you hit the goal, life throws you a new challenge, a new disappointment, a new reason to postpone feeling good. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when I told myself, once this situation is over, once the stress is gone, then I can finally breathe. But here's the truth. There's always another situation, always another form of stress, always another obstacle waiting around the corner. If you attach your happiness to the idea that life has to be perfect first, you're guaranteeing yourself a lifetime of waiting. And in that waiting, years pass, relationships pass, opportunities pass, and you're still sitting there telling yourself, not yet. What most people don't realize is that happiness is a skill, not a condition. It's something you practice, especially when life is not going your way. Think about it like this. If you only practice patience when things are easy, you're not really patient. You're just comfortable. If you only feel joy when everything's perfect, you're not actually joyful. You're just reacting to good circumstances. Real happiness, the kind that can't be taken from you, is the happiness you choose when you're standing in the middle of the storm. People push back on this idea because they think it means pretending everything's fine. No, choosing happiness doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to let reality dictate your emotional state. You can acknowledge that something is hard, painful, or unfair, and still decide, I'm not going to let this steal everything from me. That's not denial, that's discipline. Let me give you a picture of what this looks like. Imagine someone in a war zone. Buildings collapsing, chaos everywhere. And yet you see a group of kids kicking a ball, laughing like nothing else exists. It's not because they don't see the destruction. It's because in that moment, they've made a choice. Today we're going to play. If those kids can carve out joy in the middle of that, then you and I, living in far less extreme circumstances, can choose to find it too. The mistake we make is thinking that happiness is this big, grand feeling that sweeps over us when life gets good. But in reality, it's often small. It's making your favorite coffee in the morning. Even if you have 100 things to do, it's stepping outside to breathe for 2 minutes instead of scrolling the news and fueling your anxiety. It's calling a friend who makes you laugh instead of sitting in silence, replaying your problems. Those choices don't remove the challenges, but they stop the challenges from removing you. You also have to understand that no one is going to hand you this mindset. We live in a culture that sells you the idea that happiness is a product by this, go here, achieve that, and then you'll feel better. That's not true. Happiness is not a reward you unlock by following someone else's formula. It's an internal switch you learn to flip no matter what's happening externally. And the best part, the more you practice flipping it, the easier it becomes to reach for it automatically. Now, this is where people usually say, but you don't know what I'm going through. And you're right, I don't know your exact story. But I know what it's like to have moments where you don't want to get out of bed. I know what it's like to face uncertainty, loss, and fear. And I also know this, the moments where I felt most powerless were the moments where I was waiting for someone or something to change my circumstances so I could finally feel okay. The moments where I felt most alive were when I said, I'm not waiting. I'm going to find something, anything right now to hold on to that makes me feel alive. That decision alone changes your posture, your energy, and your direction. Choosing happiness is not about feeling happy all the time. That's unrealistic. It's about choosing not to sink when life is pulling you under. It's about deciding I will not spend another day of my life waiting for permission to enjoy it. Think of it like training a muscle. You don't get stronger by lifting weights once. You get stronger by doing it over and over again, even on the days you're tired. Happiness works the same way. And here's the part most people miss. Choosing happiness is an act of courage. It's easy to let yourself spiral into bitterness or hopelessness. There's no effort required. But to stand up in the middle of a hard season and say, I will find light today, takes strength. It takes resilience. It takes a willingness to fight for your mind the same way you'd fight for your life. The day you realize you have that power is the day everything changes. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You stop letting outside circumstances write your emotional script. You start taking back control, not over the events themselves, but over how you experience them. That's the moment you stop postponing happiness and start living it. And from there, every single day becomes a choice. Some days you'll get it right. Some days you won't. But once you've learned that it's yours to choose, you'll never again believe the lie that you have to wait for it to be handed to you. Most people think they need motivation to take action. They believe they have to feel like doing something before they do it. That's the trap. If you wait for motivation, you'll get maybe a few bursts of progress here and there, but you'll never be consistent. Motivation is like a guest who shows up when the weather's nice, stays for a little while, then disappears without warning. Discipline is the friend who shows up every day, rain or shine, and helps you move forward, whether you want to or not. If you want a life you're proud of, you have to stop chasing motivation and start building discipline. Think about how many mornings you've woken up and told yourself, I'll start tomorrow, because you didn't feel ready. How many workouts you skipped, not because you couldn't do them, but because you didn't feel like it. How many projects, conversations, or changes you've put off because you were waiting to get in the mood. That's how years pass without much changing. The people who succeed in anything, career, relationships, health, happiness, aren't the ones who are constantly motivated. They're the ones who do the thing, even when they're not. You have to train yourself to act before you feel ready. Discipline is doing what's necessary regardless of your emotional state. And here's the truth. Your feelings will often catch up after you start, but they rarely show up beforehand. You don't feel energized before the workout. You feel energized after you've been moving for 10 minutes. You don't feel creative before you start writing. You feel creative after you've been putting words on the page, waiting to feel like it is a trap that will keep you stuck. This is where small daily commitments come in. You don't need to climb the whole mountain today. You just need to take the next step. If your goal is to start working out, tell yourself, I'm putting my shoes on and walking out the door. If your goal is to eat healthier, make one better choice at the next meal. If your goal is to rebuild your happiness, pick one activity today that makes you feel alive and do it. No matter what mood you're in, small actions repeated daily create momentum. Momentum builds habits. Habits build discipline. And discipline is what carries you when your motivation is gone. I'll tell you something from my own experience. There have been days where I didn't want to get up. Not because I was lazy, but because life had hit me so hard that the thought of moving forward felt pointless. But every single time I forced myself to take that first step, get out of bed, go for a run, pick up the phone, and make the call, I felt a shift, not a miracle. Not instant joy, but a shift. And that shift is enough to keep going. That's what discipline does. It moves you out of paralysis and into progress. People often say, but I don't have the willpower. Here's the secret. Willpower is not something you're born with. In unlimited supply, it's something you build like a muscle. And the way you build it is by keeping promises to yourself, even the small ones. You tell yourself you'll wake up at 6 a.m. and you do it. You say you'll drink more water and you follow through. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. And when you see yourself that way, it becomes easier to push through on the bigger commitments. And let's be clear, discipline is not about being harsh or punishing yourself. It's about being consistent with what's good for you, even on the days it's uncomfortable. In fact, those uncomfortable days are where discipline is built the most. Anyone can show up when it's easy. It's what you do on the hard days that sets you apart. That's when you prove to yourself that you're not controlled by your mood, your energy level, or your excuses. There's also a freedom that comes with discipline. People think discipline is restrictive, but it's actually the opposite. When you have discipline, you're not at the mercy of your emotions. You don't waste time negotiating with yourself about whether or not to do something. You just do it. That frees up mental energy for other things. It creates stability in a world that's always changing, and it gives you the confidence of knowing that no matter what's happening, you can count on yourself to show up. One of the best ways to build this is through rituals. A ritual is simply a set of actions you do in the same order at the same time, regardless of your mood. It could be a morning routine, a workout schedule, or a nightly reflection. The point is to make it automatic. That way, you don't have to waste mental energy deciding every day whether or not to do it. You've already decided, and once it becomes automatic, it's no longer a question of motivation. It's just what you do. If you want to rebuild your happiness, your health, your confidence, anything, start by creating 1 or 2 non-negotiable daily habits. Do them no matter what. Do them when you're tired. Do them when you're busy. Do them when you're in a bad mood. That's how you train your mind and body to work for you, instead of against you. And over time, you'll notice something powerful. Your emotions start to follow your actions. You won't be waiting to feel happy to do happy things. You'll do the happy things first, and then the feeling will come. Here's the bottom line. If you keep waiting for motivation, you're going to be waiting a long time. Life doesn't hand out perfect moments. You have to create them, and you create them through discipline, through showing up again and again until it's part of who you are. And once you've built that, nothing, no setback, no bad day, no loss can take it from you. Because discipline doesn't care about your mood. Discipline gets you moving, and movement is where change begins. One of the fastest ways to drain your happiness is to waste energy on things you can't control. And yet, that's exactly where most people put the majority of their focus. They replay old conversations, obsess over what someone else thinks of them, get furious at decisions made by people they've never even met, or lose entire days scrolling through bad news they can't change. It's like being stuck in a car with the gas pedal pressed down and the steering wheel locked. You're burning all your fuel, but you're not going anywhere. When you put your mental energy into things you can't control, you're essentially handing over your emotional state to the world. You're letting strangers, circumstances, and events dictate how you feel, how you act, and how you see yourself. That's not power, that's surrender. If you want to feel stronger, calmer, and more capable in hard times, you have to start drawing a hard line between what you can do something about and what you can't. The first time I was taught this lesson, it didn't come from a motivational seminar or a book. It came from reality hitting me square in the face. I was in a situation where there were too many moving parts, too many people involved, too many variables out of my control. I could either keep trying to manage the unmanageable or narrow my focus down to the things I actually had influence over. Once I made that shift, I felt lighter, not because the situation magically improved, but because I stopped carrying the weight of things that were never mine to carry in the first place. Here's the thing, you can't control what someone says about you. You can't control whether life throws you a curveball. You can't control the past, and you can't predict the future with certainty. But you can control how you respond in this moment. You can control your actions, your effort, your choices, your mindset. And that's where your focus should live, because that's where your power is. Most people resist this idea because it feels like letting go means giving up. It doesn't. Letting go is not the same as quitting. Letting go simply means you're no longer giving energy to something that doesn't serve you. It means you've decided to fight battles where you can actually make an impact instead of exhausting yourself in fights you can't win. If you're struggling with this, try something simple. Grab a piece of paper and make 2 columns. On the left, write down everything you're stressed or upset about. On the right, cross out anything that you cannot directly control. What's left? That's your real to-do list. That's where you focus your effort. Everything else goes into the mental release category. And yes, it takes practice to stop mentally picking it back up again. But over time, you'll train yourself to catch it, drop it, and move forward. When you live this way, something powerful happens. You stop overreacting to every piece of bad news because you instantly filter it through that control lens. Can I do something about this? Yes, then act. No, then move on. That filter alone will protect your mental health more than any inspirational quote ever could. Let me give you a small, everyday example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic on the way to work. You can't control the traffic. You can't make the cars move faster. But you can control what you do with that time. You can stew in anger, honk your horn, and start your day frustrated. Or you can put on an audiobook, call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or use the silence to think through a project. Same situation, completely different outcome because of what you chose to focus on. Now apply that to bigger things. Someone treats you unfairly. You can't control them, but you can control whether you respond with dignity or with bitterness. You lose an opportunity you wanted, you can't control that, it slipped away, but you can control whether you learn from it and prepare better for the next one. The event is neutral. It's the meaning you assign to it and the action you take afterward that determines its impact. It's also worth saying that part of releasing what you can't control is accepting that life will never be perfectly fair. People will misunderstand you. Some things will not work out, no matter how hard you try. That's reality.